Hey everyone, welcome to the video. This one we are lineup building for week 18 or wildcard weekend of the NFL season on Draftkings. Now if you're new to the channel, the purpose of this video is not for me to spoon feed you guys a lineup for you guys to use in all of your contests. This is just me going over a cash game lineup building process of some of the guys I used in my core plays video. Guys that I think will be high owned, have decent floors here and good matchups, decent prices. And then you guys can apply your own favorite plays, your own process, and make your own lineups because that's the fun of DFS. I'm not here to give you guys lineups. You guys gotta make your own lineups, but hopefully I've been able to give you the information for you guys to be able to do just that. And again, this is not a guaranteed lineup I will end up using. It's just an example lineup that I'm coming up with on Friday morning to help you guys have an understanding of where I might be leaning on Saturday when I build my own lineup. Now, before we continue, as always, if you guys could just leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Really helps me out. Really appreciate it. You can also follow me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16. And if you're interested in spreadsheets to build every single week for the NFL season, we only have a month left, but I do have it up. It's got ownership projections, the stat sheet, cheat sheet, cash game rankings, my Discord chat. Links below, description below for my Patreon. And without further ado, let's get right into the video. So I already talked about all the guys I want to talk about this week. You can watch my core plays video if you want to hear about pretty much every player I have interest in, because I'm only going to highlight the guys that are in this lineup. So if you want to listen to everything, core plays video, and also my first look video that I made on Monday as well. So at quarterback, I said he's my QB1 this week, and I think he's going to be the highest owned quarterback, and I just want Saints exposure, so I'm going to plug in Drew Brees here at 6,600. I think he's an awesome play, and I think the Saints come out and smash the Vikings. We know this is a revenge spot. I'm sure you guys remember what happened last time they played Minnesota in the playoffs in Minnesota. Stephon Diggs walked it off with the walk-off touchdown. I believe it was over Marcus Williams, who mistimed that jump horribly. Ended up walking it off for the Vikings, and that sucked for the Saints because they had a monster team. They could have easily went to the Super Bowl. I think it cost them the Super Bowl. They should have beat. I think they would have beat the Eagles. Would have played the Patriots in the Super Bowl. I think they could have beat them as well. But I think the Saints are going to be hungry in this one. I think they're going to put it on the Vikings. You know, they're not going to forget what happened to them. So I think they're going to come out swinging. And we all know BREES and the Saints smash at home, and his splits would suggest that so far this season. I already went over this in my core plays video, but I'm just going to read it off to you again because I realize not everyone's going to watch this video that watched the other video. But his season splits at home. He has a 77.5% completion percentage, which is absolutely amazing. 17 touchdowns, which doesn't sound like a lot, but don't forget he also missed some time with that thumb injury. He has a 119 QB rating, which is excellent, and he has 8.32 yards per attempt at home, so he's actually going down the field a lot more at home, so obviously he's going to feel more comfortable. And on the road, his stats would be 68% completion percentage. Not too bad, but compared to 77.5%, pretty big difference. 10 touchdowns, 110 QB rating, and he's not going down the field as much on the road, only 7.12 yards per attempt. So all the stats would suggest he smashes at home, and those are pretty on par with his career percentages as well. Now, the matchup isn't great versus Minnesota. They are 7th DVOA versus the pass, and they only allow the 9th fewest points per game to quarterbacks. But the Saints' offensive system and scheme, Sean Payton, he's gonna draw these plays up pretty well, and I can almost guarantee success every single week. So I have no concerns with that. And he has solid and elite weapons all around, and Michael Thomas, ALVIN KAMARA, Jared Cook, then secondary options like Ted Ginn, Taysom Hill. Unfortunately, I hate Taysom Hill because he steals all my main players' touchdowns every single game. And then Traquan Smith, if I didn't mention him already. So he's got good weapons all around. This game also features the highest over on the slate at 49, and the Saints have a 28.5 implied team total, which is also highest on the slate. So it makes sense to give not all my exposure, but a lot of my exposure from the Saints. So Drew Brees, he's got the highest implied team total. He's going to have the most scoring opportunities. They're playing at home in the Superdome, the revenge spot. Gotta like Drew Brees a lot, so I'm going to plug him in. I do think he's going to be the highest owned quarterback of the week. Now at the running back position, I said I want Saints, and I'm going to plug in ALVIN KAMARA here at 7,400. And really, I just want as much exposure to the Saints as I can get. I just think they're going to be the best source for fantasy points with high upside, and they have elite players. Now, the problem is they're all expensive, but we have a couple of value options on this slate that makes it pretty easy to fit in all the Saints studs with some other solid options as well. So I have no concerns about fitting in all three Saints studs if you choose to do so. But the big thing with KAMARA this season so far is just he's not scoring touchdowns. And it's weird because the past 2 seasons, he was a touchdown scoring monster. I believe he had 18 last season, and then the year before that, I don't remember exactly how much he had, but he was definitely scoring more touchdowns than he did this season. And if you just look at the game log, besides these last 2 games, he had 2 touchdowns the whole season. He had a rushing touchdown versus Seattle, and he also had a receiving touchdown versus Seattle. And after that, it was it. It was it until week 16, where he had 2 touchdowns versus Tennessee, and then 2 touchdowns and 1.5 versus Carolina. Got pulled early. So the touchdown regression did come in a nice way for ALVIN KAMARA, and I think that continues into the playoffs here. And, he's also coming off the high ankle sprain, too, and it made him look pretty bad. He didn't look that good on film if you watched ALVIN KAMARA ever since that ankle sprain after, Jacksonville. Not look that great, but he's looked pretty spry the past 2 games, I will say that. So I think he's going to be fully healed, kind of like Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley looked pretty meh when he came off the high ankle sprain, but the past few weeks, he definitely turned it up a notch. So I think they're both getting over their high ankle sprains that came around the same time, so I think ALVIN KAMARA is going to be good to go here. And now the matchup, again, it's not that good versus Minnesota. They have one of the better run defenses in the NFL. They're 9th DVA versus the run. But for fantasy points given up to the running back position, they're actually more middle of the pack. And we did see Aaron Jones dominate them, so they're not absolutely unstoppable, or unbeatable, I should say. Now, the matchups really don't matter to me with a healthy ALVIN KAMARA because considering 1, he's awesome, and 2, he's heavily involved in the passing game. He's averaging over 7 targets per game. He also has a 19% target share, which these numbers are excellent, only behind Christian McCaffrey, who's obviously on a whole other level. And the Saints' offensive line is elite, so he's going to be fine. They should be able to get him open holes, and he should see plenty of scoring opportunities. They have the highest implied team total, so theoretically, he should have the most scoring opportunities out of any running back on this slate. So ALVIN KAMARA, 7,400. He's not even the most expensive running back in the slate. He's the 3rd most expensive running back, and they're big home favorites, which I like out of my running backs. So I'm going to plug him in. And I think it just makes sense because Derrick Henry, he's going up against the number 1 rush defense for fantasy points given up. In a bad way for Derrick Henry. I might have made that sound good, but it's a bad way. Dalvin Cook's going up against one of the best run defenses in New Orleans, and they're both road underdogs. Doesn't set up well for a running back. ALVIN KAMARA's the 3rd most expensive running back. Big home favorite on the highest implied team total team of the slate. I think he just makes a ton of sense. So ALVIN KAMARA, I like him as my RB1 this week. Then James White, he comes in at 5,700, so I didn't talk about him too much on the core plays video, but I've actually kind of risen on him a bit just because, so Julian Edelman's banged up. We know Sony Michel hasn't looked great this season. Are they going to give him like 20 carries? They just might do that, but this is a tough matchup versus Tennessee. I believe they are like 10th DVA versus the run, and there's really no one on this team that you can really count on besides James White. James White's a playoff player. I mean, they just throw him the ball, dink and dunk it the entire time. And he's pretty much an extension of the run game. If they can't run it with Sony Michel, they're just going to throw all these checkdowns to James White. They're going to run the ball through the air, if that makes any sense. And he's been safe pretty much every week. He's scored double-digit points in all but 3 weeks so far this season. And he also has a high ceiling. We saw it versus Houston. He had 11 targets, 8 catches, 14 carries, 79 yards, 37 fantasy points. Do I expect anything like that? Not in the slightest, but I think he's a safe bet for double-digit points. So if we're playing a guy like Sony Michel, he has to score a touchdown. But with James White, if he's going to get me like 5 to 7 targets, just being conservative, he's going to get you there. He's going to get you double-digit points. So I think he's a safe bet. He's been good in the playoffs forever now, so we're going to plug him in and just lock up that receiving upside. So I like the 2 running backs we have. Yeah, ALVIN KAMARA, one of the best receiving backs in the NFL, and then we have James White, again, one of the best receiving backs in the NFL. So I like the floor that we have on a PPR site like DraftKings with guys that can catch passes like these two. So now we're going to move on to the wide receiver position, and I said heading into the week, Michael Thomas, you're locking him in. I've been saying that since the Saints were on this slate on Sunday night. We got to lock in Michael Thomas, and I won't make a lineup without him, personally. Now, I get it. He might be a good tournament fade, but I don't see it, guys. I just don't. Sometimes you got to take a stand on a player. If you get either fade him or maybe you just want to be overweight in the field and go all in. Personally, I'd go all in, and if he sucks, I mean, I can take the heat. If people saying nice pick, he sucked. But I don't see how he doesn't do good in this matchup. And the guy just absolutely smashes at home, and he is the most safe fantasy option so far this season. Not going to look at last week because they were killing the Panthers. They had the win locked up. Really didn't use it much. But before that, 34, 33, 33, 10, 29, 28, 31. I could just keep going. He had a 44-point game mixed in there. Doesn't matter. The guy is consistent every single week. His worst game besides that last game was, I believe, 10 points on Thanksgiving versus Atlanta. Only had 8 targets, but the targets are going to be there every single week. And he just smashes the home, as do the Saints. And if I'm playing Drew Brees, it makes sense to pair him up with Michael Thomas. And this is a really good spot for Michael Thomas versus the Vikings, who really tend to struggle with wide receivers. They allow the 7th most points per game to the position, and he's going to draw the Xavier Rhodes shadow, which, trust me, if you haven't been paying attention to cornerbacks this year, he is bad. Xavier Rhodes is not good. A couple years ago, we would be pretty scared of a shadow from Xavier Rhodes on the wide receiver that we're playing. I welcome it now. He should be just fine. Xavier Rhodes sucks. According to PFF, Michael Thomas has the best wide receiver cornerback matchup of the week. I think it's like a 32% advantage, which is by far the highest. And Rhodes is giving up on this slate. He's just giving up the most yards per route ran, and he's giving up the second most fantasy points per route covered. So Michael Thomas, he should be able to eat here. Wide receivers eat on Xavier Rhodes every single week. And just from a volume standpoint, he's averaging over 11 targets per game, 107 yards per game, 32% target share, 75 weighted opportunity share. What's not to like about Michael Thomas? If he busts, he busts. But everything would suggest he has a good game here. So highest implied team total. We played BREES. We got ALVIN KAMARA. I say we just play all three Saints studs in this lineup for cash games, and then we move on. So I like to start this lineup quite a bit. We got BREES, ALVIN KAMARA, James White, and Michael Thomas. Now for my wide receiver 2, I think there's a couple of good places you could go. You could play Edelman, but he's banged up, which is one of the reasons why I like James White, and I don't really like Adam Thielen. So DK Metcalf and John Brown, I think these are both really excellent options, and you could afford both in this lineup. John Brown, it's a really good matchup versus Houston. I mean, one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL, but I personally just want the late game exposure, so I'm going to give DK Metcalf the bump here, and it's also the higher over-under of the slate, and I just like getting late game hammers. If I have two similar plays that are pretty much the same price and one starts later, I'll play the guy that starts later. I do the same thing in NBA because I just feel more safe having a late game player, because if my guy duds early in the week, or the day before I should say, I'm going to be not too happy about my life choices, so I'm just going to go with the late game, and whatever happens, happens. So DK Metcalf, we're going to plug him in here at 6,100, and you save about 1K off of Tyler Lockett, so I think he's the better play between him and Tyler Lockett. This game also has a tight spread, and it's also the late one, so like I said, definitely want exposure to it. He faces off versus a very beatable Eagles secondary. The Eagles are allowing 41.3 points per game to wide receivers, which is third most in the NFL. And he also has a big speed advantage here, not something I typically look at, but I know DK Metcalf's fast, so I just looked at the wide receiver quarterback matchup and the speed difference between these two guys. He's going to be lined up against Rasul Douglas for the majority of this game, and that guy has a 4.640 compared to DK Metcalf's 4.340, so 4.33. I think he can burn him pretty deep for a big touchdown here. I think we could have a big DK Metcalf game. And plus, this Philly run defense is pretty darn solid, and the Seahawks running backs aren't that great. But you have Old Man Lynch, which is no slight to Marshawn Lynch. I'm a big fan of Marshawn Lynch, but he looks slow out there. And then you got Travis Homer, who's kind of just whatever. So I expect them to be throwing the ball quite a bit here. And this game has the second highest over/under on the slate. And if I don't have Russell Wilson, I'm probably gonna want exposure to some of his passing options, because I do think Russell Wilson's gonna carry some ownership. So it doesn't leave me completely dead in the water not having Russell, so I can just I can just play DK Metcalf as a one-off and get my exposure there. So DK Metcalf, I think he's a very solid play on the slate, and we are going to plug him in. And my heater just went on, so I got to pause that because you guys can probably hear it. Okay, so I'm back now. So we just got done talking about DK Metcalf. So we have to go to the wide receiver 3 spot now. And I think a popular player, so I don't absolutely love him, but he does make sense if you think about it. So Corey Davis at 3,800, I do expect him to have some heavy ownership, especially in cash games, but he makes sense, and I'll tell you why. So we need some value, and I don't mind Corey Davis, because first off, what do the Pats do best every single week? They're going to take away your number one. They bracket him. I think that's going to be A.J. Brown. I know it's going to be A.J. Brown. He's going to have to get more treatment, and I think they bracket him. It's pretty much what they do every single week. And then they're probably going to sell out to stop Derrick Henry. They are number one versus running backs in fantasy points given up. So they've been very stiff against running backs this season. I think they sell out to stop Derrick Henry. I think they sell out to stop A.J. Brown. And they're going to have to try to make guys like Johnny Smith and Corey Davis try to beat them. So, and someone's got to move the chains here, and I do think Corey Davis can do that. I'm not expecting a huge game. I'm not saying he's going to get like 12 targets, 180 yards, and a touchdown. Give me 8 points. Give me 9 points. I'll take it. I will take it. It's a tough matchup versus New England, but he's going to see a good corner as well, like someone like J.C. Jackson, something like that. I'm not saying this is a great matchup, but it makes sense just theoretically, because if you think they're going to sell to stop A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry, the Titans aren't going to get 0 yards this game, so they're going to be moving the ball at some point. So I think Corey Davis is someone that can move the chains here. And he's actually been okay the past 3 weeks. He's at 8.7 points versus Houston, 7 points versus New Orleans, and he had 8.4 versus Houston again. And Tannehill's throwing on the ball, and Tannehill looks like an MVP candidate right now. If you stretched his numbers throughout the whole season, he's been excellent. He's been elite. He's actually going down the field more than anybody. He's got a 9.6 yards per attempt, which is highest out of anybody in the league right now, above guys like Patrick Mahomes, Matthew Stafford, guys that chuck the ball deep. So Ryan Tannehill is not dinking and dunking the ball. He is going down the field, so that gives his wide receivers upside, more so AJ Brown than Corey Davis. But AJ Brown's gonna have I think he's gonna struggle versus not Marshall Lattimore, versus Stephon Gilmore here. And I think the most likely scenario is that the Titans are playing from behind. So Corey Davis, he makes sense. Maybe he gets a garbage time touchdown if they're not winning this game. Now, trust me, I'm hoping the Titans pull this off. I would much rather see the Titans win this game than the Patriots. But, you know, how many times have we doubted the Patriots and then they just come out and just beat everybody in the playoffs? It happens every single year. So I am just going to assume the Patriots win this game, and they're playing at home in Foxborough. I'm pulling for the Titans to pull off this upset. I would be very glad if they did so. I just don't see it happening. I'll have to see it to believe it, but I just can't bet against the Patriots in the playoffs. Although I don't think they'll beat the Ravens. I will say that, especially since they'll be on the road if the Ravens do advance. So I do think they'll win this game versus Tennessee. I will say that. But Corey Davis, I think he's a pretty solid play at 3,800. I do think he's going to be pretty popular, so we're going to plug him in. Don't expect much, but if he can give me like 8 points, I'll be happy with it. For the tight end position, again, as of right now, I'm assuming Zach Ertz is missing this game. So he did return to practice, but he didn't really do much, and he's been yet to clear for contact, and it is now Friday. Obviously, they have not practiced yet, but if he's yet to be cleared for contact today, I don't see how he plays this game. So for this lineup, we're assuming Zach Ertz is going to be out. And if that's the case, we got to lock in Dallas Goedert here. I don't see how you can get away from it. He's 5,200, which is a little pricey, but again, he's a good player. I mean, he was drafted early. It's not like he's some scrub that's the backup. He is a very good tight end. He would be the starter on most teams. And he didn't ball out last week, but he did play 100% of the snaps. He did not come off the field, and he saw 10 targets. If you're telling me Goddard's going to get like 10 targets versus Seattle, sign me up, because he should be able to smash here. This is a great matchup versus Seattle. They're allowing 16 points per game to the position, which is second most in the league, only behind the Cardinals. We know how bad the Cardinals were versus tight ends this year. And he's going to be Wentz's number one guy. They're missing Alshon Jeffrey, potentially Zach Ertz. Miles Sanders is questionable, although he should be good to go. Nelson Aguilar, Deshaun Jackson. I mean, someone's got to get the ball here. I think it's going to be Dallas Goedert, and teams beat Seattle with their tight ends, so I don't see why that would change here. And we know Wentz loves throwing through the tight end position. So Dallas Goedert, we're going to load him up. I think he's an excellent play. And then for the flex spot, we only have 2,900 left. So I know what you're probably thinking, how the heck are we going to fit in the lineup here? Well, I'm planning on going double tight end here, so I don't mind Joshua Perkins. It's a weird strategy. Usually I like to get an extra running back in the flex spot, but this is my lineup, so I can do whatever the heck I want. And you can get a little bit different on these slates because it's only a 4-game slate. So it's not your typical cash game slate. So you got to get a little bit weird. I don't hate the double tight end approach, because if I had to get another running back in, I'm probably sacrificing a guy like DK Metcalf or maybe Dallas Goedert. Maybe you can just play Joshua Perkins. We'll figure it out, but I don't mind the double tight end approach here with Joshua Perkins. And this is assuming Zach Ertz happens to be out, because if he's out, Joshua Perkins is easily the best value play in the entire slate. I'd expect him to be extremely high owned, because it's just a mispricing. He's only 2,900, and he had a good game last week. He had 6 targets, 4 catches, 50 yards. They get into the end zone, 15 fantasy points, and as a tight end, it's an elite matchup versus the Seattle Seahawks. I just said they're giving up the second most points per game to the position. Maybe you see some run at the wide receiver spot because there's just nobody on the field. Greg Ward as well, he's out there, but it's pretty much just Perkins, Ward, Arcega-Whiteside, and Dallas Goedert. So and when someone's got to catch the ball for the Eagles, this game has the second highest over under the slate, really tight 1-point spread. So I think Joshua Perkins would make sense, so we can plug him in. I feel pretty good about that. At this point, we have 3K left. I really don't care about defenses, but I do like the Saints at home versus Minnesota. Now, I will say, if this was a regular slate, I would not want to have Drew Brees, Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, and pair him up with the defense, because I'd hope this game would shoot out and it would be pretty close. But this is also the playoffs, and teams are going to come out here and make a statement, especially the Saints versus the Vikings. They don't want any funny business late in the game. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Saints offense smashes and the Saints defense smashes, to be honest. Kirk Cousins hasn't been too great recently, so we could plug them in, and that gives us the clean average salary remaining of 0. So I don't think this is a bad lineup. Drew Brees, Alvin Kamara, James White, Michael Thomas, DK Metcalf, Corey Davis, Goddard, Perkins, Saints. Really the only questionable guy is Corey Davis, but I do expect him to be pretty high owned, so I do think he's a pretty good cash game play. So I think that's pretty much it, guys. Hope this video was helpful. If it was, remember to leave a like. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out. Really appreciate it. You can also follow me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16. And I'll see you guys in the next video.